Okay, so let's talk. I'm going to review the assessment guidelines that we talked about in class, just so you have this to reference in case you have any questions. And certainly, that does not mean that you shouldn't write and let me know because I'm happy to answer questions. And it's always better to be over prepared rather than under prepared when it comes to assessments. So remember, everyone in the class is going to do the CBM benchmark. You're going to send me the answers that the child or the child's answers so that I can put them into the online system and send you a report based on their scores. If you're working with a first grader, you give the TEMIO calculation assessment. That is an option at second grade, or you can just use the CBM probes in calculation, and concepts and applications are what we call reasoning. Okay? And you're going to use those same probes for anyone in third through sixth grade. So for the most part, really, first grade TEMIO, and that's because there aren't probes available. For everybody else, I would recommend that you use the CBM probes, both the calculation and the concepts and application are reasoning probes. And then in addition, the final assessment that you'll do will be the KeyMath. As we discussed, every student that you assess using the KeyMath, you will give the numeration subtest because it is that score on numeration that dictates where you begin on all of the other subtests. So as we said, you have to do numeration because that determines where we're going to begin on any other subtest, and you should determine what other subtests you're going to do based on your analysis of the child's performance on that CBM benchmark, the TEMIO if you're using it, and or the concepts and applications and the calculation probes. Okay? So, again, when you do that benchmark, make sure you're using the winter. So when you look in the notebook that contains the Easy CBM benchmarks, what it's going to have in there is fall, winter, and spring for every grade level. For your pre-assessment that you're going to do now, you're going to use the winter measure. When you go back at the end of the semester, you'll use the spring. Remember that you're going to make a copy. Remember that the student has to answer every single item. Because if one of them is left blank, the program will not allow me to score it. You're going to send me the student's response. You're going to list the number of items vertically, and then you're going to write a letter next to it. Please do it exactly that way because it will make it much easier for me to transfer those scores into the program that I have to use to run your report. Once you send it to me, it should be less than 24 hours before I send that report to you unless you provide it to me on a weekend. If it's more than 24 hours and I haven't sent it to you, send me another email and remind me because I want you to be able to have that so you can make some other decisions, assessment decisions. Remember that you're also, if you're working with second grade and above, you're going to use the calculation and the concepts and application probes. So you generally will begin with the first probe at that student's grade level. So if the student is in second grade, you're going to use the first probe in second grade. Remember that all those probes are said to be at an equal level of difficulty. So the number that you use really doesn't matter too much as long as you're not using the same one over and over. If you're going to use these probes for progress monitoring, which you may recommend, you may not, you may come up with something different and that's fine, then you can continue with the other probes that are, beyond the one that you use for that baseline. But you don't have to worry, like if probe 5 is missing in the book, I hope it's not, but these have been used by other students. Don't worry too much about it because again, they're said to be all of them are equal level of difficulty, okay? Now, it may be you're working with a student that is performing far below grade level. And so you need to, in that case, be thinking about what grade level do I think, or what grade level benchmark do I think this student is likely to be able to obtain by the end of the year, okay? And so if you drop back, so let's say you're working with a third grader, but you decide you're going to use the second grade level probes, then you make sure that you use the time limits that are specified for second grade and that you use the benchmark targets for second grade, right? Even though the child is a third grader. Now, if a student scores somewhere between 10 or 15 blanks correct, you're at about the right level. If it's less than 10, you need to back up. And if it's more than 15, then you might want to reconsider and just use the grade level probes. I already talked about time limitations, but that's really the key. These are certainly not hard to administer. You give it to the student. You tell them you're not going to be able to finish it all. Do the best work you can, working quickly and accurately. And you set your timer, and when it goes off, the student stops working, and then you're going to be able to score after that. Obviously not in front of the child. Remember that for the calculation, you're going to score using digits correct, not problems correct, digits correct. We practiced it in class. You practiced it on the IRIS module. And remember, the reason we do that is because digits correct is a more sensitive measure than problems correct. For concepts on applications, you're going to score the number of blanks that are correct. So some problems will have one blank, some will have more. So each and every blank that child is correct in completing, you're going to give them credit for that. Again, not problems, blanks. And then in reporting on that, you're going to go back and look at where is this child performing and what is the expected benchmark. And that's going to help you understand just exactly how much growth that child needs to exhibit in order to be where they should be at the end of the year. KeyMath is by far the most complex of these measures. Remember that you're always going to give the numeration subtest first. You have to establish a basal item, which is 3 correct answers in a row. And then you have to establish a ceiling item, which is the highest, which is 4 answers incorrect in a row, and the ceiling item is the highest among those, or the high, of those 4, the last one that they missed, the 4th one that they missed. What are you going to need? You're going to need pen and pencil, a calculator, the test easels that were modeled for you in class, copy of that examiner booklet, the student booklet if you're giving written computation only, and you're going to only do that for kids in 3rd grade and above. If you're using that measure, you will give the student a calculator to use while they take that particular subtest. Give the numeration subtest first, score it. That is going to tell you where you need to start in any other subtest. Okay? Remember that you have to determine, you're going to go in, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get a raw score using the tables available for the time period when you're assessing. So remember, we've got fall, winter, spring, and easy CBM benchmarks. In KeyMath, we have August to January, February through July. So we're February through July, so you're going to make sure that you're looking at Form A, the charts for February through July, in the specific grade level that your student is in. And for this one, you stick with that grade level, okay? So then you're going to go through and you're going to calculate a scale score. You're also going to calculate a confidence interval. And remember, we discussed in class, if you're only using 1 or 2 subtests, you can only use your only confidence interval that you should be selecting is 68%. You can only go up to 90% if you've given all the subtests within a broad area. And if you have extra time, please feel free to go to and nobody's waiting for the KeyMath kit, go ahead and administer extra assessments. It'll give you a more complete profile of the child, and it'll be good practice for you. Okay, and then remember that you're also going to be able to go in and do some comparisons or do a grade equivalent. You're not going to be able to do, I believe that I'm stating this correctly, you're not going to be able to do an age equivalent again, or yes, you can do a grade equivalent and age equivalent, but you're not going to be able to do a percentile again unless you've given the complete measure, okay? If you have questions, please make sure that you spend some time with that manual, that you double check yourself, and most important is that you're getting information and transferring it from the appropriate table. Okay, I'm not going to go over student assignments or anything else. I think that sums up what you need to do. Obviously, if you have questions, please ask. These tests take a little while to get used to, or these assessments, and I certainly would anticipate some questions.